Good to see you. Thank you for joining me for this.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited. I think
Yeah,
I
I'm glad
saw
we
my
get.
dad on here. And
Oh yeah, I'm glad we get a chance to talk.
huh?
I'm glad we get a chance to
Yeah,
talk.
yeah, me too.
Have some um, and things I want to like learn more about when it comes to you and what you're doing. After some other conversations, kind of how your art practice has grown and you're kind of taking in new places. So just first, hi, thank you. Um, And I was sharing before, you're quite accomplished. You are a Delaware Artist Fellow. So you got that fellowship. Amazing. Congrats. And now you're a resident you have a residency at the Delaware Contemporary. Amazing.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, I mean, from my conversation, please correct me if I'm wrong, you kind of made some big decisions to pursue this path like in 2019, right? Like that's when you had your first show and
Yeah, yeah. Like I've always been, into art, painting, drawing, or whatever. But I had my first exhibition in 2019, and it's kind of just been an uphill road since then.
yeah. So
But
that's
it's
that's kind of a rise in such a short period of time. So you must have been hustling, right? You must have.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I hustling in the sense I'm always making art like every day, so the work is there, you know what I mean. But then just like trying to be part of more shows, looking, like looking for things that I might can apply to, all of that, like it.
So that's kind of my first question. When did you get to that point where you decided I'm going to pursue art beyond just making it, right? Because that's a big decision. A lot of us struggle with that first. Like we like making, we like painting, we like doing that thing. But when we're going to start looking for going to markets, selling our artwork, that becomes a whole other thing. When did you decide I'm going to move beyond making to like doing this more professionally?
Well, I feel like when I had my first exhibition, right, like we did an art market there, and I was like able to sell some work. I kind of like that opened my eyes to a lot, even within like the community. Like I was able to meet a lot of artists that were doing like the thing that I just now started to do. Um, so it was like, okay, like it can actually be done, right? Because prior to that, I was like, oh, I can't make a living out of art, and I think you can definitely do it. It's not an easy road, and I'm not there yet. I still have a full-time job, but you can definitely do it. But I think in 2020, I was at my job, and COVID happened. I was doing some counseling work, and I was just like, oh, like I knew it, like I just felt it in my heart even more that like I need to be making more art. So I intentionally made more time in my job. Like I switched jobs to have more flexibility, to be able to dedicate more time to my art. That was like the first step. And then just kind of went from there. And then I'm like, you know what? I could like, how can I make an income out of this? Because you don't sell paintings every day. So it's like, okay, how can I make an income, right? And I have friends who are teaching artists and stuff like that. So I think that's when I was like, I could teach art. You know what I mean? Like I'm still like stepping slowly into that teaching artist role. Like I've been there, I've been doing it for like legit for like a little bit over a year now. And it's been really, really good. I still feel like I have so much more to learn, but it's been good. And that's a way to make some steady income. You know what I mean? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to leave my full-time job one day, I feel like I would want to have some kind of job in teaching. Unless, I just go wildly famous and can live off selling artwork. But I think that I would be the most happy just being able to teach art in some kind of way. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So so the why for this was just because it felt kind of like the fullest expression of yourself to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's something I've always done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even like after high school, like when I was in high school, I remember my art teacher like saying, "Oh, you should go to an art school," but my mind was like, "No, I can't make a living like out of selling artwork," because I didn't know, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know that you can actually do that, right? I wasn't even aware fully what art school would look like or none of that, right? Like it was just more like, let me get a degree in something that I know will give me like a steady income. Um, Therefore, I got a degree in behavioral science, which technically I'm not using, but that's okay. But yeah, I just didn't know that. I didn't, you know what I mean? Like my parents were from Chile. Like they've always supported me the best of their, capacity and what they knew. But I didn't know that there was another option, right? To have a creative outlet,
Yeah,
and it's always my outlet. But to be able to share and then to be able to actually like make an income out of it, and then hopefully in the future start making a more of a career out of it, like that was all like a newer thing for me.
yeah,
But something I knew that I would be happier doing, because I've never been, I was never really fully happy in any position that I was in job wise. I was like, oh, right now I am very happy at my job though, because it's flexible.
yeah,
It's so I can do what I want to do.
yeah. So yeah, I totally understand that. When I was growing up, as much as I was that little kid too in school. I was the artist kid. I was always drawing out of my comic books, drawing sports heroes, doing all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But like the idea of turning it into a career or a job just never came across my mind, and I didn't necessarily have input from people around me that it could have been. And
Mm-hmm.
so a long time later, long diversions in life, I ended up going back to school, and for some reason, it just even though art has always been a part of my life, I've always been painting. I've always been around people who do art. I never thought about it as a career option. It was just something I kept doing. So I went to college, got my bachelor's degree in philosophy, which not necessarily a guaranteed job there, anyways. But I went for and and then I went on for a master's. And it wasn't until I was actually at a PhD program at the University of Delaware where as much as I learned there, I was not happy in that program. I was not happy in the library all the time. I was not happy in front of a computer screen all the time. And it just reached a point where all I had left, I had all my classes done. All I had left was my dissertation. And I was probably almost done with it, but I was just, and then the pandemic hit. So I was just so unhappy. And I'm like, if I don't do this now, I don't know if I'll ever do it. And for some reason, I just felt like maybe I should pursue this. And so I went all in around 2020. So kind of not too far from when you were committing to it like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was. And so I've just been steadily working at it with its ups and its downs. And I've been lucky because I've met a lot of good people like you. And it's definitely been a benefit in that way.
Oh, thank you. It's good. I think community is a big part of it. And I feel like within the community here in Wilmington, and I know you're right over the border, but you count as Wilmington artists.
I see myself that way. I'm not even going to lie, because that's where I'm at. I'm always over this way.
Yeah, I feel like we have a really good artist community. I feel like no one really gatekeeps anything. Like, I've learned so much from a lot of other artists, just like how to move in certain ways, how to show up for an exhibition, how to show up for certain things, right? So I would love to share everything I've learned and continue to learn from other people. But the community always helps. It excites you. It almost is like it embraces you.
Yeah, 100%.
It's really nice.
I love that term you use, gatekeepers, right? Because in academia, everything's gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Like you have your advisor, even I had a published article and everything, and it was still like never enough. It was like I was always in the hierarchy of stuff.
Although PhD, I only have a bachelor's, and
yeah, I don't know how I made it that far.
Yeah.
I'm
hoping with like this residency at the Delaware Contemporary, I'll be able to pursue like an MFA, because that's something I've been wanting to do, and I feel like I've been wanting to do more for me, right? Like, I don't know, like after high school, I didn't have any other formal, art training, and like everything I know is just from practicing and doing it over time and taking classes here and there. But I feel like I would enjoy like a art program of that nature. But I always hear two sides to a story. Like, people that go to art school say F art school. Like, I wouldn't want it to take away from my individuality at all, but just, spice things up maybe.
Yeah, and be exposed to new things, new people. I totally get that. Yeah, that if I was to return back to school, I think that would be the only thing.
Yeah, I can't.
But
far.
you kind of lead me into this when you were talking, when you kind of started this conversation about school and not wanting to lose your individuality, about like your process, right? And so do you go into when you're making your work with kind of a plan in in mind? Like I have, I know what I want to draw, I know what materials I want to use, or are you kind of intuitive? I know you have lots of art materials and I see you work in different media. So is it like you're inspired and you grab what you grab and you start banging it out, or is it kind of planned?
I think it's a mixture, and I think like when I first like I think throughout my whole life, it's always been more intuitive. I feel like there's a lot of pieces where I would just start. Like I would have no idea what I'm doing, but I would just start and figure out that way, right? But I think now I'm doing things more intentionally. It's still being unintentional, but intentional in a way. Like also because, like I'm trying to make a good studio habit. So I'm intentionally working on things. But now I like a lot of times I know what I'm gonna do on the canvas, right? There is days where I just wanna, you know what I mean, just doodle and stuff. So like that'll start something kind of random, but I feel like now I usually have an idea of what I want to do and what I want to work with, which is acrylic markers. I'm stepping my feet into oil, but I
Mm.
think I'm taking an oil class because I took one like a week class this summer and it was nice, but I was like, it's a whole different, it's a whole different,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think there's definitely more intention now. I mean, in my inspiration still like I might be scrolling through Instagram and I'll see like a picture that I like, and I'm like, oh, I want to paint that. Or there's a piece that's at the Bigs now that like I was having tea with my family, my dad, my mom, and my aunt, and I was like, I sat back and I looked at it and I was like, this is a really nice moment. I'm gonna paint this. So I literally took a picture, went home, painting it. So a lot of my stuff is off the strength of that. And then like my feelings and stuff. So
Mhm.
definitely how I express myself for sure.
So I want to ask about the line work. Where does that fall in? Because some of them look like they're just kind of, you start it and you kind of go with the flow wherever it takes you, right?
Yeah. So the line work started with Jaquan Leroy. I love him. He's a friend and a mentor. He's a Wilmington artist. And I remember one day we were out somewhere sitting down, and we're literally the same person when it comes to art. Like, you know, as most of us are. So we were sitting there at the table, and we decided to do this exercise where we would look at each other, we would draw each other, but we wouldn't, like a drawing exercise where you don't look at the paper and you don't pick up the pencil. So we started doing that, and I was like, oh wow, I really like mine. Like, they starting to look really, really cool. And that's kind of how I started doing that. Like that big piece I have, the black and white with the line work, I literally used the mirror and did that same concept. Like I was looking at myself, and then I was just like trying to figure out some lines and doing like that. Now, like I can look at the paper and just kind of go as it flows. But that's my line work history.
Okay.
It was inspired by that one time, and I was like, oh, I like that.
What's the biggest line work one you've done?
It's the 30 by 40 one.
Okay, that's a big.
The hardest part of that one was painting the canvas white. I don't know why, it was because it's hard to paint like a white canvas white and make sure like it has a solid, you know,
Yeah.
and like where my studio was at the time, there was a lot of like sunlight, so that was also like hard sometimes. But yeah, that's the biggest one I've done. But I just did one today. I left it in the car. I had like a teaching thing to do, and I just did one. It was like it went really nice. So I should have brought it in and showed you. But yeah.
Awesome. So and now you're kind of, as you've been doing stuff over these last couple of years, you're now taking even another leap, right? And you're becoming a curator. You're doing curation, right? So you got to show that you're curating, you're in charge of. I know you have a team around you, but so I kind of like what encouraged you? Like what led to like, the next step for me is to curate a show.
So okay, so when I had my exhibition in 2019, right? Like I was really excited. I was like, this is like amazing. I want to keep doing this. So shortly after that, I had an exhibition in New York. And that was me literally just like on Instagram looking for open artist calls, right? I was like, I want to do another one. Like, where can I get in? So I got to one in New York. And my friend Shanice at the time was also like painting here and there. And she also exhibited with me at Chris White. And I remember like soon after the New York one, we were like, we should make an exhibition. So I actually took part in curating one in 2019 at the Chris White. It was like a group exhibition. It was called The Evolution of Art. Brand new. Jaquan once again stepped in and like really came through and like kind of guided us in what we were doing. So it was me, him, Roxanne, that was in the residency program with Chris White at the time, and Shanice. We curated together, right? And there was a lot of learning. And then this year, Jaquan approached me and he was like, you know, like he asked me if I wanted to curate a show in September, being that it's Hispanic Heritage Month. You know, I'm from Chile, so he was like, I think you would be the best person to do this right now. And I was like, definitely. He said that to me, and I ran with it. You know, the concept that I came up with, and like, you know, like I worked on everything, like the concept, the email, all of that, and it just feels so good. I'm just like, this feels really good. I definitely think that I am for the people, right? Like, and it makes me happy to be able to open that gallery space to artists that sometimes might feel like that might not be a space for me, right? Or like, how do I get in there, right? Because it's open.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the artists, well, not a lot, but a few of the artists are like Latino artists that are well known in the Latinx community, but not necessarily all around, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
and the talent is like out of this world. So I'm really excited to be able to open those doors too. Um, but yeah, it feels good. I feel like I could definitely see myself curating another show. And like, I thought about curating shows before, like, I mean, my own show per se, like, but I've never really actually like seen it through or thought about it hard enough to make a plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
But this has been a good experience as we're going through it. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And so, what's what's the next step? Is there one yet?
For
I don't know.
uh,
Like, are you someone who like you got that one goal in the bag, you got that one, and now
yeah,
you're already imagining the next one?
so I mean, 2023 and 2024 are pretty like booked up already, right? In between like the fellowship and then the residency that starts September 1st. So that's gonna go through the whole year. But a part of me is like already starting to research like, is there any residencies in 2025 that I can do? Or like I want to get more into looking for like awards, like different kind of awards that people sign up for. Um, I need to talk to more of my artist friend that actually like applied and got awards, because I'd be like, I don't want to pay $30. um, I be feeling the way about that, but I gotta get through that. But yeah, like I wanna, like I'm already looking, like hoping to get into some residencies for 2024, 2025. Keep teaching, or maybe pursue, an art degree after the residency. I don't know, but
How about artistically? Are there any kind of milestones stylistically? Just some whale out there that you're trying to kind of capture. Like this big. Is there something artistically you're like, I'm gonna try to aspire to accomplish that? Is it the oil painting? Do you wanna, or is there something more personal you're trying to master?
yeah, I don't. I mean, that's something I want to do, but it's not like, I don't know. It's on my list to do, but it's not on like I must do it kind of thing. I don't know.
Mm,
I am like, so for the residency, I want to tackle like a concept of togetherness that I want to come up with, where like the pictures will show like the feeling of togetherness, right? So like I'll show you. This would be something for that body of work, right? It's not done, but
oh yes, yes, I've seen
right.
this piece.
So like
Mhm.
once again, like I saw that picture and I was just like, oh, I need to try that. I need to do that. So that's a concept that I want to like build a body of work for. But that's really, that's really it. I mean, I don't know. Every day it's like, okay, like I want to, try something new. Like last night I don't know if you can see that one with the flowers.
Mm-hmm. In the
So
back.
yeah, and I was like, oh, should I do a big one? And I was like, yeah, but not tonight, right? And I literally
Yeah.
about this, but yeah, every day is different when it comes to the work I'm
Right.
doing. But there's
I
particular.
think I have one last question really, and it is about your art practice a little because you talked about how you kind of are trying to um, refine it. Do you find yourself that you have to set like a schedule for yourself and say I'm here at this time as frequently as I can, or if you make a time and sit down, you can kind of get into it.
Um, I don't necessarily need to make a schedule. Um, I feel like I will once I start the residency program because I really want to take advantage of it. Right now, like I've set up a studio in my brother's basement space that I live in. So like the living room area is my studio. God bless them. Um, but yeah, when I start the residency, I do want to have a more set like, all right, like this days I'm off, I'm gonna go here from this time to that time, right? Um, and just sit there and work on stuff for sure. But no, I mean, with my schedule too, like I work 5 days every pay period. So I only work 10 days a month. But I work 12-hour shifts, so don't get it twisted. I work hard, okay?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I've done those long shifts.
like I usually sit here at night and I have to create something. I have to make something, get something out the way. Um, so yeah, I I think technically maybe it's just something I naturally do now. But I think before like it was like maybe I did have to be more aware of making that time to do it. But now it comes more naturally.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I think
Yeah.
residency is going to be something again where like, all right, like you're off on this day, go to the studio for these many hours, stuff like that. Figure that out. Yeah.
Yeah. I've found that for me, I've had to kind of set a schedule, say I'm gonna show up there, and that helps me a little bit, like not worry about what I'm doing, just focusing on doing and trying to get it out, and um, try to make just gonna try to make as much as possible, and some of it comes out all right, some of it doesn't, and just not even think about it. But as long as I set a block time and just sit down and do whatever I can, that's the only way I get going. I have to kind of discipline myself in that way. Otherwise, I think it kind of gets away from me. Something will happen. A sound will come from my phone, and I'll start to look at it.
Oh yeah.
But when I shut myself off for a little bit, it actually helps.
Yeah. You know what? Like when I am creating, like I hate that I'm so attached to my phone a lot of times, right? Especially like Instagram and you're constantly posting and scrolling and stuff. But when I am creating, like unless I'm looking at a picture for inspiration or whatever, if I'm working from a picture, like I'm disconnected and that's good. I really
Yeah.
do enjoy
I hear you.
it. Yeah.
I mean, that's part of the wonder of it, right? Like that it does kind of transport you from the everyday and what you're kind of those distractions.
Yeah.
Um, so I think those are the questions. I really appreciate you taking the time for us to have this conversation.
But
I know we're gonna have more time.
future artist talks.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely looking forward to setting up some more, and just kind of learning what people are doing, how they're approaching their art, how
Yeah.
they're, there's so much information out there, but some of it sometimes feels very disconnected from the reality of
Um
making. So
into
it's like I like to actually talk to an artist and see like what's your path like? What are you doing? What's your ups and downs? How are you making it work?
yeah. Um, so because you're saying that, have you listened to any of the podcasts on, I want to say it's the Delaware Division of the Arts podcast,
I
but it
haven't
might
had
have another.
the chance.
Yeah, I've never listened to it. And I listened to like the first one and it was from Lauren Peters and like, it was so good, right? Like, and like I can relate to a lot of stuff that she was saying. So it was just like, I was like, wow, I messaged her. I said, I really enjoy your podcast, but like it's kind of like the same questions we're going through. But it's nice to see what other artists are doing, right?
Yeah.
Like how they started, and it's just it inspires you. So
Yeah, and you kind of see that there's not a one size fits all path, right? Like
no,
even though there's some commonalities, at the end of the day, we're all kind of forging our own path, our different experiences,
yeah,
and and then defining what success looks like to us,
yeah.
and figuring that out as we go along.
Don't literally said that in the podcast, you know, and I agree with it. Success looks different for everybody, right? Success might be like, it depends what you want. Even like I tell, you know, like friends that I have that are artists or whatever, like you're an artist regardless, right? You're an artist. If you say you're an artist, you're an artist, right? Like you don't need an approval from anyone to determine that. Now, how you want to show up in the world as an artist, right? Like if you want to like be an artist who shows work, be an artist who sells their work. There is different ways to show up and things you have to do for that, right?
Mhm.
But if no one ever sees your work, you're still an artist, you know?
100%. Yeah.
So, yeah.
For me, that would be a shame. I want to encourage people to just put it out there because the more we are able to see, but yeah, I know some people it's really personal and they just want to do it for themselves. But yeah,
It was vulnerable for me, you know, to when I first started sharing my work with people. I was definitely a closet artist for a long time. Um, so yeah,
yeah,
it's cool.
that was the biggest thing for me was just putting it out there. Um, I remember when I did my first market, it was learning to be able to just talk to people about it. And once I got a first sale, that made this seem a lot more real to me. Where I was like, wow, someone really wants to pay me for my artwork and put it in their house. Like,
But it is
that's cool.
like the profit is nice, but the fact that like, oh, you like my art,
Yeah.
thank you.
And you're willing to see it every day and be
Yeah.
with it every day. And I was listening to a podcast, and the guy was an art dealer, and he was talking about how for a lot of people it's that question of, can I live with this regularly, that makes a big deal. And he talked about how he purchased a painting, and the artist was so terrible to work with that he had to end up selling the painting, because when he saw it in his house, he just kept having bad feelings. He's like, he just kept remembering the shitty experience he had with the guy. And he was like, I had to get rid of it. So yeah, like that thought about, like, you're going to get up every morning, you're going to go about your day, you're going to live your life, and you're comfortable spending it with that, is something that goes beyond the money, right? Like that just goes beyond something else. There's a piece of me with you even though I'm not there, and that's
Yeah,
a whole other thing.
that is for sure. That's why I don't know if you saw my post. Like I had a Biggie piece that I sold, and I don't know who bought that piece. And like sometimes I think about it, and I'm just like, dang, I wonder where he's at.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, yeah, I have a couple pieces like that where I'm like, man, I should have kept some sort of notice of who it was, but it's also like, I find knowing that it's out there, even though I'm not attached to it, it's an interesting feeling. There's part of you floating around in the world somewhere, and
Yeah.
cool.
Cool stuff.
So I want to thank you again. And I think we can do this another time, anytime you have some more to share. And I hope to do these more regularly. Maybe we can get a couple people on at a time.
I'm trying to do an artist talk at some point for the exhibition, so maybe we could.
Oh yeah, and definitely have it stream it live while we're doing it too. Yeah, I think that'd be awesome.
Yeah, or have a recording of it or something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. It was great talking to you. You have a good weekend, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. You too.
Thank you
Thank you.
for joining us, everyone. Bye.
See ya.